What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. We have a special video today for you guys of the Tau versus the Necrons. This will be a battle overview where I took Montka and he took the Hypercrypt Legion. This was a great game, a very tough game. And I do apologize for the late video. I'm new to editing and I just got this game in on Monday. But with that being said, let's get straight into it. Alright, so before we get straight into the list, I just want to say my opponent was a really great guy and we had a really fun game. But he did bring a Void Dragon, a Transcendent Catan, Emotech with 5 Immortals. That's the squad next to the Catan. That's a little bit hard to see. He brought a Technomancer with 6 Wraiths. He brought a Monolith. He brought 2 units of 5 Deathmarks. 2 units of 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers and 3 separate Locust Destroyers. And for my list, I had Farsight with 3 Sunforge. I had Dark Strider, an Enforcer Commander with 3 Fire Knife, and he had the enhancement Coordinated Exploitation. I had a Lone Spear, Kroot Hounds, a squad of Breachers, a Devilfish, a Piranha, Pathfinders, a unit of Vespid, a unit of Stealth Suits, 2 Broadsides that were in a unit, a Hammerhead, a Skyray, and a Storm Surge. This is just a quick video of our deployment. As you can see, most of my army is on my home objective. Then I have the Storm Surge, the Kroot Hounds, and the Lone Spear over to the left. I have 2 Crisis teams in reserves, both Broadsides in reserves, and the Breachers are in the Devilfish. And then he did choose to start everything on the board because of his ability to go back up into reserves and come back down. So yeah. Alright, so this is the end of turn 1. My opponent did get to go first. And his secondaries that he drew were Cleanse and Area Denial. The only model that was able to do Area Denial was the Transcendent Catan, but he didn't want to put the Catan out early in front of all of my firepower. And for Cleanse, the only model that was able to get onto an objective was also the Transcendent Catan, with his ability to advance and then teleport. But because you have to advance, he wasn't able to complete that action. And then my first turn, I drew Sabotage and Cull the Horde. I was able to do Sabotage with the Kroot Hounds on that objective that's closest to me. Because they are within 12 inches of a Kroot character, which is the Lone Spear, they gain +1 OC, so they can hold down primaries. They can do actions. I talk about this a lot on my channel. And then I had the Vespid move up just to push any of his deep strikes back so he couldn't drop right in front of my face. And then I had Dark Strider, which wasn't really on top of the building. I put him there so I wouldn't forget him. I had him there for that 12-inch deep strike denial bubble because I didn't want any 3-inch deep strikes or any deep strikes right in front of my face. So I really needed him there. And then my Piranha was in the front of this green and yellow building, and he just moved around to the back side of that objective so I could really try to screen that objective that was closest to me. I didn't want too many things dropping right there early. And then so my strategy was really just to screen here, because playing against Necrons, if your strategy is to kill them, unless your opponent's dice are cold, it's not gonna work. Alright, so this is the end of his second turn. He kept Cleanse and he drew Sabotage. And then at the end of my first turn, he took out 5 Deathmarks, the Void Dragon, the Monolith, and a Locust Destroyer. He ended up dropping the Deathmarks over here by the Transcendent Catan and by my Vespid to Cleanse. And then he used the Transcendent Catan to do Sabotage because he believed that the Transcendent Catan would survive. And then he dropped he 3-inch deep strike the Locust Destroyer right in front of my Kroot Hounds, but I did screen him well enough to where he wasn't able to get onto that objective. And then after his movement phase, I used the Stealth Suit's free ability to rapid ingress these Broadsides over here on the left because I had these Stealth Suits lined up right here by the Storm Surge. And this is really what my plan was. I didn't want him to drop anything strong over here on this left side of the board. I wanted to keep my long range firepower there to be able to, scare him from doing that. And it did end up working this time. And then another thing that worked here is that the crew hounds survived 3 death marks and a locust destroyer shooting at them. Because of that stealth ability, it caused them to whiff. And this is kind of something that I talk about a lot on my channel. I'm going to always talk about this combination, that if you don't have, a unit that has a good enough ballistic skill and enough shots to kill the crew hounds, it's going to be really, really hard to take them off that objective. And, 99% of the time, people don't want to put something real into crew hounds, especially if you have them in front of broadsides and a storm surge. So that strategy worked out really, really well here. And I will be scoring primaries with them. I did still hold that objective in the middle with the piranha. I was surprised that he didn't drop anything there to take care of it. But alright, so round 2 into my movement phase, I dropped in Farsight. I moved up the Pathfinders, moved the Vespid up on that objective. I moved the Piranha still in the middle. I moved the Devilfish up to the middle to back up the Piranha. As you can see, the Crew Hounds are still alive there, the Lone Spear, and I dropped in those other Crisis Suits. Alright, so this is what the end of turn 2 looks like. I drew no prisoners in area denial. The Piranha was already in the middle, so I could do area denial really easily. And for no prisoners, unfortunately, I only killed 1 unit, which was that Locust Destroyer at the top. I did whiff very badly against the death marks down here at the bottom. And Farsight's unit wasn't able to do enough damage to the Catan to kill him. I moved my tanks over. I moved the Storm Surge out to the middle so he could choose to go both ways if he wanted to. The broadside shot down at the death marks, and the Crisis Suits finish off that Locust Destroyer. I dropped all of my units in because I really needed to screen all of his deep strikes. Like I said, I wanted to keep him on his half of the board. And then I ended up charging the Vespid into the lone death mark, but they whiffed as well. And then the play that made this turn was the Pathfinders charging into the Catan and having 2 of them survive, so I could beat him out for that objective and he wouldn't hold primaries. This is something that Tau is really good at doing, is just denying primaries. Yes, I didn't want to get rid of my Pathfinders that early, but Farsight's unit failed 2 charge attempts, but you know how those 9-inch charges go. And then over here at the top, I have my Crew Hound still on that objective and my Lone Spear on the objective. So this is the end of my opponent's 3rd turn, where he drew Bring It Down and Defend Stronghold. I was able to keep him to 5 primary here. He fell back the death marks and was only able to revive 2 of them. So at the beginning of this turn, I had 5 Vespid there. I had my 2 Pathfinders there. So I had 7 OC on that objective. And then because he was only able to revive 2 death marks and not 3, the Catan plus the 3 death marks was also 7 OC. So I stopped him from scoring primaries there. Then he moved up his Wraiths. He 3-inch deep strike the Monolith, and he deep strike the Void Dragon over there to the right side. The Locust Heavy Destroyers, both squads moved out on the side of this dark green Necron building to get line of sight on the Skyray, and then Emotech and the Immortals stayed on that objective. So we had the Transcendent Catan shoot at Farsight's unit, killing 1 Crisis Suit. The Wraith split fired into the Piranha and the Vespid. Killed 2 Vespid, didn't do any damage to the Piranha. The Monolith split fired into the Enforcer Commander's Crisis unit and the Piranha, and actually whiffed pretty bad, not killing the Enforcer Commander's unit or the Piranha. The Void Dragon ended up just killing my Crew Hounds there, and then these Locust Heavy Destroyers, both units shot into my Skyray. The unit that had a ton of shots didn't really do much. I think they're like 18 shots, but they have like rapid fire 6 or something like that. But these Heavy Destroyers with the flat 6 damage, he hit and wounded with all of them, and I saved 1, which left my Skyray on 2, which was huge because it completely denied him bring it down, which was great for me. Then he also attempted to charge the Canoptic Wraiths into the Piranha and failed, and also failed the Void Dragon charge into my Lone Spear. So this is the end of my third turn, and in my third turn, I drew Establish Locust and Defend Stronghold. I did score 10 primary here, and I was able to establish Locust with the Vespid in his deployment zone down here at the bottom of the screen. Farsight moved up to help clear out this objective, and then mainly I moved everything to focus down this Wraiths unit. So the Devilfish moved up and around the building, dropped off the Breachers. The Piranha scooted up just a little bit. The Crisis Suits moved forward onto this objective just so they could be in range of those Wraiths. And then the Broadsides were peeking around that corner to see the Wraiths. In the Storm Surge, I used the strat to move him and to auto advance him 6 inches to be able to see the Wraiths as well. All of that shooting into the Wraiths, and one still survived. That was my whole army. He was rolling 4s, and with 4-up invulns, if they roll 4s, you can't do much about it. And then Farsight and them moved up to shoot at the Catan, but again, like if you roll 4s, if you have that 4-up invuln, you roll 4s, not much you can do about it. And then so what I did with Farsight's unit is I charged the Death Marks to kill them, just to tie for that objective again. So as you can see, Farsight is standing on that objective. And then the Devilfish ended up charging the Monolith because I didn't want that Monolith to be able to come up and come back down. So here I'll be talking about turn 4 and turn 5. So my opponent in his turn 4 drew Bring It Down in Containment and scored 5 on primary because Farsight was able to stop the Catan from scoring. For Bring It Down, he shot the Monolith into my Devilfish and split fired into my Enforcer Commander Crisis unit. He was able to kill the Devilfish and really damage the Crisis unit with the Enforcer. He was able to kill my Skyray with the Heavy Destroyers that are way back here in the back. And he killed my Piranha with the Locust Heavy Destroyers that are closer to the objectives. He wanted to shoot my Breachers, but I told him they were -1 to wound in range, so he just ended up going for the points. The Locust Destroyers that were by themselves dropped down to do containment. The Wraiths move over to this objective with the Catan to try to kill the Vespid, but they did whiff in the shooting phase. And then the Catan actually did whiff against Farsight's unit pretty badly. I think he did kill 1 Crisis Suit unit, but that was all. And then the Wraiths and the Catan ended up charging Farsight's unit, but with the 4-up invulns, I was able to survive. So then my turn 4, I scored 10 on primary, holding the middle objective, and Darkstrider being on my home objective. And I drew Overwhelming Force and Assassination. So I didn't really do much moving here. I just had Farsight kill this last Wraith that was on this objective to score me Overwhelming Force. The Vespid essentially just stood there to try to hold more OC on that objective. The Hammerhead and the Storm Surge killed the Locust Heavy Destroyers that were closest to the objective. I ended up just leaving the Locust Heavy Destroyers that were in his deployment zone alone because I didn't see them doing much else for him. I knew I wasn't going to be able to kill the Monolith, so the Broadsides shot at the Monolith but didn't really do much. The Breachers just stood there and shot at the Locust Heavy Destroyers but essentially didn't do anything. So then in turn 5, he was able to score 10 on primary because he out-OC'd me on the objective where the Monolith and my Enforcer Commander is, and then he had his home objective. And then he drew Assassination and Engage. So essentially he didn't do too much moving here because Assassination, he just had to kill my Enforcer Commander or Farsight, which he did both. And then Engage, he could get small Engage because he still wasn't able to drop onto my side of the board. So I do feel like I did a great job of keeping him in front of me. And then for my turn 5, I scored 10 on primary with the Breachers and Darkstrider, and I drew Secure No Man's Land and Cleanse. And essentially here, I just didn't move at all. The Breachers scored Secure No Man's Land and Cleanse, which ended up winning me the game 74-69. All right, so overall, a great game, a tough game. I think Necrons are a super hard counter to Tau, just because Necron's whole thing is about survivability and Tau's whole thing is about completely killing units. So I had to adapt my strategy. So the things that I focused on is I focused on 2 units, which were the Wraiths and the Monolith. I focused on the Wraiths because I wanted to kill the Wraiths, and I wanted to lock the Monolith up in combat so it couldn't go up and down. And then also I was trying to see which side he was going to put the Monolith and the Void Dragon on to try to take over that side. And then I was going to adapt and move my forces away from them so they would do minimal damage and only be able to control one objective. And because the Wraiths were on, my right side and the Monolith was on my left side, I was able to maneuver my Storm Surge over to the right, and that really helped me knock down those Wraiths. So with Tau, I think adaptability is one of their biggest things because of our movement speed, our range. We can adapt to different playstyles, but I do think that to do that, you need to have multiple different data sheets. That's why I don't really like to stack the same units, because when you run into different armies and different playstyles, you're going to have trouble if all of your units are essentially the same. So I think, Tau has a really, really good codex with a lot of good usable units. So that's kind of the main thing you're going to want to focus on with Tau. All right, so for the end of the video, I'm going to go over a few things that I think I could have done better, different loadouts that I would take next time, and what I think about the Mon Ka detachment overall. So I think that I could have, one, deployed the Hammerhead on the other side by my Storm Surge. 2, I could have had the Breachers over by my Storm Surge as well instead of in the Devilfish, and then started the Pathfinders in the Devilfish. And then the last thing I think I could have done better is try to get the Fire Knife Crisis Suits in a spot where they could threaten his side of the board. I think I dropped too many things on my side of the board. Next, the different loadouts I think I would take is definitely, I would probably take that the other weapon that the Storm Surge has that's like Strength 26, AP 6, 12 damage, or Strength 10, AP 2, 4 damage. And then I think that I would take missile sides instead of the rail sides. And then also instead of the missile pods on the Fire Knife, I think I want to try the plasma rifles. Other than that, I pretty much liked my list. It had a bunch of different units, a bunch of different abilities, a lot of damage output. But, it's really hard to gauge how well certain things do against Necrons, because I really had to change up my whole strategy. Lastly, what I think about Mon Ka is it's a good detachment. It's obviously not the best, but the fun in the game comes from being at a disadvantage and learning how to win, learning how to really master your army or armies. I think that Mon Ka is a good detachment. It's obviously not as good as Cao Yun for us, but, it has really good stratagems, and you just have to figure out how to play around the strats and the speed and, just different things that your units can do. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for coming.